The days after, nights 9/11. I didn't go home after the siege. I couldn't. The idea of my empty apartment, the silence of the city, the mundane reality of grocery stores and gas stations. It all felt alien to me now, like a movie set I'd stumbled onto by mistake. I slept in the cot in the back of cell 1. It was the only room that didn't smell like ozone and fear. When I woke up for the 9th shift, my body felt different, lighter. My vision was sharper, edging on telescopic. I could see the dust motes dancing in the stagnant air of the hallway. I could hear the electricity humming in the walls like blood moving through a vein. The station had repaired itself. The steel door was smooth and unblemished. The salt line was pristine. The shattered mirror in the restroom was whole again, though the glass had a dark, smoky tint that hadn't been there before. The only thing missing was Holloway. I sat at the desk at 8:45 p.m. The phone didn't ring. The radio didn't crackle. It was just me and the hum. I checked the impound lot. 7 vehicles. The bus was gone. The extra motorcycle was gone. The balance had been restored. But the silence was worse than the chaos. The silence gave me time to think about what Holloway had done, what I had done. I had facilitated a suicide mission. I had taken a promotion that required a human sacrifice. At 11 p.m., I went down to the basement. The crack in the floor was gone, sealed by smooth new concrete that looked slightly wetter than the rest. I placed my hand on it. It was warm. On the metal shelving nearby, where Holloway had kept his cleaning supplies, I found a new logbook. It wasn't leather like Reeves. It was a standard issue black binder. The first page was written in Holloway's blocky, utilitarian handwriting. To my successor, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Hopefully, I went out on my own terms. If I didn't, and you're reading this while something is chewing on your leg, I apologize. You have questions. I didn't answer them before because knowledge is weight and you needed to be light on your feet to survive the transition. But now you're the anchor. You need the weight. This station isn't just a checkpoint. It's a filter. The things that come through, the travelers, the lost souls, the things that shouldn't exist, they're attracted to the ley line. Route 66 is an artery of belief. People believe in the road. They believe in the journey. That belief creates energy, and energy attracts parasites. Your job isn't just to watch, it's to curate. You decide what passes and what stays. But be warned, the station changes you. It strips away the parts of you that don't serve the mission. Your empathy will dull. Your memory of the outside world will fade. You need to hold on to something, a totem, a memory. Keep it safe. Don't let the station eat it. P.S. The coffee machine is tricky. 2 scoops, not 3. 3 scoops wakes up the plumbing. I closed the binder. A totem. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my wedding ring. I hadn't worn it in months, but I carried it. Dana was gone, the real Dana, not the thing that had screamed at the door, but the memory of who I was when I was with her. That was still mine. I put the ring on the chain around my neck, next to the key to the armory. Night 10, the audit. The 10th night brought visitors, not the monsters from the siege, but something more bureaucratic. At 10:08 p.m., a black sedan pulled into the lot. It was a 1950s model, sleek and dark, hovering just an inch above the gravel, rather than rolling on it. A man got out. He wore a grey suit that fit too perfectly. He had no face, just a smooth expanse of skin where features should be. He carried a briefcase. He walked to the front door and waited. I buzzed him in. I knew instinctively that he was allowed. He walked to the desk, placed the briefcase on the counter, and opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper and a pen. The audit, a voice said. It didn't come from the faceless man. It came from the air around him. I looked at the paper. It was a list of names. Holloway, Dale, term expired, Reeves, Thomas, status, rogue, missing. Webb, Marcus, status, probationary shepherd. Below my name was a blank line. Sign, the air whispered. What am I signing? Acceptance of assets, acceptance of liabilities, acceptance of tenure. How long is the tenure? Until the relief arrives. When does the relief arrive? The faceless man tilted his head, as if confused by the question. When you are spent, when you are used up. I looked at the list. Holloway had done this for 40 years. 40 years of nights, 40 years of solitude. I thought about the world outside, the debts I owed, the empty apartment, the failure that was my life before this. Here, I had purpose. Here, I was essential. I signed. The faceless man closed the briefcase. He turned and walked out. As he reached the door, the air whispered one last thing. Beware the 13th night. The contract has a grace period. The rogue knows this. He dissolved it into smoke before he reached his car. Night 12, the echoes. By the 12th night, the transformation was accelerating. I didn't need to sleep during the day anymore. I lay in my apartment, staring at the sun tracking across the carpet, feeling the pull of the station like a hook in my gut. My skin was becoming pale, taking on the grey pallor of the concrete walls. My voice, when I spoke to the cashier at the gas station, sounded like it was coming from the bottom of a well. Pack of gum, I'd said. She dropped the change, her hands shaking. Your eyes, she'd whispered. I checked the rearview mirror. My irises were grey. The color had drained out of them, leaving behind the color of the Oklahoma highway sky before a tornado. I arrived at the station early. 8:06 p.m. I was cleaning the shotgun, Holloway's shotgun, when the radio clicked on. Marcus. It wasn't the dispatcher. It wasn't the Dana thing. It was Reeves. His voice was clearer than before, less distorted. You think you won, Reeves said. You think because you fed the old man to the wolf is full. I'm not interested, Reeves, I said, polishing the barrel. The breach is sealed. The breach is sealed physically, but the connection remains. I'm still here, Marcus. I'm in the walls. I'm in the wiring, and tomorrow is the 13th night. So? Holloway never told you about the 13th night, did he? The probationary period ends. The protections reset. For 1 hour between 3 and 4 a.m., the station is porous. It reboots. I stopped cleaning. You're lying. Am I? Why do you think Holloway told you to report to him after the 13th shift? Because he had to manually hold the barrier while the system cycled. But he's gone. And you're just a rookie with a shotgun. The radio cut out. I sat in the silence. I checked the rule sheet. Rule 15. If you complete your 13th night shift without fatal incident, report to Sergeant Holloway's office before leaving the station. He will explain what you've really been doing. Holloway was supposed to explain. He was supposed to be there. I went to the basement. I found the operational manual, a thick, dust-covered binder from 1954. I flipped through pages of technical diagrams and metaphysical containment protocols. There it was. Appendix C, cyclical maintenance. Every 13 cycles, the containment matrix requires a realignment. During this process, automated wards are temporarily suspended for a duration of 59 minutes. Manual override is required. Manual override procedure. The shepherd must occupy the central node, basement, and recite the binding liturgy continuously until the reboot is complete. Warning. During the reboot, the shepherd is vulnerable to psychic displacement. Entities may attempt to occupy the shepherd's vessel. Reeves wasn't trying to break in. He was trying to get in me. He wanted my body. He wanted to be the shepherd again. Night 13. The reboot. I prepared for the 13th night like it was a war. I lined the basement door with salt. I painted symbols, sigils I'd found in Holloway's notes, on the floor of the archive room. I drank enough coffee to kill a horse. I brought everything down to the basement, the shotgun, the radio, the totem, my ring. At midnight, the station felt heavy. The air pressure was immense. The lights buzzed with a frantic, angry energy. At 2 a.m., dark hour, I sat in the center of the sigil circle in the basement, waiting. I didn't go upstairs to the desk. I knew the rules were different tonight. At 2:55 a.m., the lights died. Not just the overheads, the emergency lights, the exit signs, everything. Total, absolute darkness. Then the sound of the reboot began. It sounded like a massive turbine spinning down. Whirr, clunk, silence. Hello, Marcus, Reeves's voice. It wasn't coming from the radio. It was coming from the corner of the room. I clicked on my flashlight. The beam cut through the dust. Standing in the corner, leaning against a filing cabinet, was a man. He wore a highway patrol uniform from the 90s. He was handsome in a rugged way, but his skin was translucent. I could see the filing cabinet through him. Get out, I said, racking the shotgun. You can't shoot a memory, Marcus. I'm not physical, not yet. He pushed off the cabinet and walked toward the circle. He stopped at the painted lines. You painted the wrong sigils, he smiled. These are for Class 4 entities. Poltergeists, banshees. I'm not an entity, Marcus. I'm a shepherd. I have the clearance. He stepped over the line. I fired. The blast went right through him, blowing a hole in the filing cabinet behind him. Papers exploded into the air. Old case files, fluttering like white birds in the flashlight beam. Reeves didn't flinch. He kept walking. I told you, he said softly. I know the rules better than you. I wrote half of them. He reached me. He didn't attack. He just stepped into me. The cold was instantaneous and paralyzing. It felt like being submerged in ice water. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. I was trapped in my own mind, pushed into the back seat of my own consciousness. I saw through my eyes, but I wasn't controlling them. Reeves and me raised my hands. He looked at them, flexed the fingers. Ah, he said, using my mouth. Solid, warm. It's been so long. He picked up the shotgun. Now, he said, walking toward the basement stairs. Time to make some changes around here. I think I'll start by opening the front door. Permanently. No, I screamed inside my head. Quiet, rookie, Reeves's fault voice echoed. You're just a passenger now. He walked up the stairs. I struggled, thrashing against the psychic chains holding me down. It was like trying to move in a dream. Sluggish, impossible. He reached the hallway. He walked toward the front entrance. Holloway sacrificed himself for this, I shouted internally. Holloway was a fool, Reeves sneered. He was a jailer. I'm going to be a liberator. He reached the front desk. He reached for the door release button. I needed an anchor, something he didn't have, something that was purely mine, the totem, my ring. It was on the chain around my neck, resting against my chest. Reeves didn't know about the ring. He hadn't read Holloway's last note. I focused everything, all my will, all my rage, all my grief over Dana and my career, into that ring. I remembered the day I put it on, the promise I made, for better or worse. I visualized the metal heating up. I remembered the heat of the car engine during high-speed pursuits. I remembered the heat of the Oklahoma sun. Burn. The ring grew hot. Reeves paused. What? It grew hotter. Searing. Branding the skin of my chest. Stop it, Reeves growled, clutching at his chest with my hand. Get out, I screamed. The pain was blinding. The ring was melting into my skin. But the pain was mine. It was real. It was physical. Reeves couldn't handle the physical reality of it. He was a ghost. He was used to the cold. It burns, he shrieked, my voice cracking. He fell to his knees, clawing at the chain. But his ghostly influence was slipping. The pain grounded me. It pulled me back into the driver's seat. I surged forward, reclaiming my limbs one by one. The right arm, the legs, the neck. I ripped the chain off, taking a chunk of burned skin with it, and held the searing gold in my fist. My body, I snarled, forcing the words through my own throat. My shift. I grabbed the shotgun from the floor where he dropped it. I turned the weapon on myself, or rather on the space behind me, where I felt his presence lingering, trying to hold on. "If you want to stay," I yelled, "you burn with me." I ran toward the salt line at the front door. The blue fire was still smoldering from the siege. "No!" Reeves screamed in my head. "The salt, it destroys the spirit." "Exactly." I threw myself onto the salt line. The agony was absolute. It felt like being dipped in acid. The salt burned my physical skin, but it obliterated the foreign presence attached to my soul. I heard a wail, a sound like tearing metal, and then a violent pop. Something grey and smoky was ejected from my body. It writhed on the salt line, dissolving, screaming in 1,000 dead languages. "You're fired, Reeves," I gasped. I kicked the remaining smoke out the door, into the night. The clock chimed 4 a.m. The station lights flickered and hummed back to life. The reboot was complete. I lay on the floor, chest burned, skin raw, but alone in my own head. "Unit 77, the radio crackled. "Dispatch." The real dispatch code. "Status check." I crawled to the desk. I grabbed the mic. "Unit 77, secure." "Copy that. Good work, Shepard." Acti 4. Resolution and transformation. The new management. The burns on my chest scarred over in a pattern that looked suspiciously like a map of Route 66. The ring was gone, melted or absorbed, I wasn't sure, but I didn't need it anymore. I was the anchor now. 6 months passed. I don't go home anymore. I gave up the apartment. I moved my things into the station. Clothes in the locker, books in the break room. I set up a cot in Holloway's old office. The rules changed. Or rather, I updated them. I wrote a new list. Rule 14. The coffee is for staff only. Do not leave cups out after 3 a.m. The shadows get thirsty. Rule 15. If you hear knocking from inside the filing cabinets, hit them once with the rubber mallet. They'll stop. Rule 16. Reeves is banned. If he appears, ignore him. He's just static now. I've hired a deputy. His name is Jason. He's 22, kicked out of the academy for anxiety issues, drowning in student debt. He reminds me of myself before the hardness set in. He arrived last night for his first shift. He looked terrified. He looked at the concrete walls and the buzzing lights like he'd stepped onto Mars. I sat behind the desk. I wore the uniform, Holloway's old uniform, tailored to fit me. It fit perfectly now. "Sit down, Jason," I said. My voice was calm, flat, the voice of the shepherd. Is this place real?" he asked, looking at the list of rules I'd handed him. "As real as you make it. These rules: don't look in the mirror at 2 a.m. Don't count the cars. Read them, memorize them. Your life depends on it." He swallowed hard. "Why? Why do you stay here?" I looked out the window. The sun was setting, turning the Oklahoma prairie into a sea of blood and gold. The first stars were appearing, some of them moving in ways stars shouldn't move. "Because someone has to," I said. "Because the road is long and the night is dark and things get lost." I stood up. I checked my watch. 8:45 p.m. "Grab a flashlight, kid," I said. "Time to count the cars." I walked to the door, my boots making no sound on the linoleum. I touched the scar on my chest. The highway hummed beneath my feet. It knew me, and I knew it. I opened the door to the night. Let's go to work. Epilogue 3 months later. From the Journal of Marcus Webb, Senior Shepherd, Station 77. The bus came back last night, the one with the children. Jason panicked. He tried to run out to the lot. He wanted to save them. I had to tackle him. Had to hold him down while he screamed, watching those pale faces press against the glass. "They're dead, Jason," I shouted. "They've been dead since '72. "They're crying," he wept. "Can't you hear them?" "I hear them," I said softly. "I hear them every night." We watched until the bus faded away at 3 a.m. Jason is sleeping now in the break room. He'll quit soon. They usually do. They don't have the stomach for the curation. But I'm worried about the new anomaly. Mile marker 141. There is no mile marker 141. The sector ends at 140. But last night I saw it. A new sign. Green and reflective. It didn't have a number. It had a symbol, a spiral. And standing next to it was a man in a grey suit. The faceless man. He waved at me. I think the territory is expanding. I think the station is growing. Holloway said we were a plug, but roots grow, and roots crack the foundation. I need to recruit more shepherds. One isn't enough anymore. If you're reading this, if you're out of options, if you have debt you can't pay and a past you can't outrun, look for the ad. It won't be on Indeed. It won't be on Craigslist. It will be written on a bathroom stall in a rest stop at 3 a.m. or whispered through the static of your car radio. AC to 1, the concrete tomb. I need to write this down while my hands are still steady enough to hold a pen, while the caffeine is still fighting off the exhaustion and whatever else is in my system. If you find this log, don't come looking for me. Just take the notebook, leave the booth, and run until you see the sky. My name is Elias Thorne. I'm 28 years old, living in a basement apartment in Dorchester that smells like mildew and cat piss. Or I was, until 3 nights ago. I came to Boston for a PhD in history at BU. I had big dreams of tenure tracks, elbow patches, and lectures on colonial infrastructure. But dreams don't pay rent, and they certainly don't pay the $140,000 in student loans that hang around my neck like an albatross made of lead. I washed out of the program 6 months ago. Academic probation turned into expulsion after a mental health crisis that the dean politely suggested made me unfit for the rigors of academia. Translation: I had a breakdown in the library archives because I started finding patterns in the old city maps that shouldn't have been there. Fast forward to November. The Boston winter had arrived early, turning the city into a grey slurry of slush and road salt. I was 3 months behind on rent. My landlord, a guy named Vinny, who looked like he broke thumbs for a hobby, had given me a deadline. Friday. Pay up or get out. I had $42 in my bank account. I found a job on a flyer taped to a telephone pole outside a Dunkin' in Southie. It was tearing in the wind, soaked with freezing rain. Night security, private garage, Beacon Hill, 40 HR, cash, weekly. No questions, no phones, no fear of the dark. Call Sully, $40 an hour. For sitting in a booth, it was insane. It was double what I'd make bartending, triple what I'd make retail. I called a number right there on the sidewalk, shivering in my thin coat. Yeah? A voice like gravel in a blender answered. I'm calling about the security job. Can you start tonight? Yes. Be at 144 Bowdoin Street, the alley behind the State House. Midnight. Don't be late. And bring a sweater. It gets cold down there. Down where? Click. I should have known better. Boston is an old city. It's built on landfill and secrets. You dig deep enough anywhere in this town, you hit things that were buried for a reason. But when you're staring at eviction, you don't look for red flags. You look for a paycheck. I arrived at 11:45 p.m. The address led to a narrow cobblestone alleyway in the shadow of the State House's golden dome. There was no garage entrance visible, just a heavy iron gate set into a brick archway that looked like it dated back to the Revolutionary War. Standing by the gate was Sully. He was a massive man, shaped like a vending machine wrapped in a wool coat. He had a thick neck, a flat nose, and skin that looked too pale, like dough that hadn't been baked. He was smoking a cigar that smelled less like tobacco and more like burning hair. "Thorne," He grunted, not looking at me. That's me. You got debts, kid. I blinked. Excuse me? He turned. His eyes were small, dark beads buried in the doughy flesh of his face. They didn't blink enough. The job. We only hire guys with debts, guys who need the money more than they need. Other things. Safety, sleep, sanity. I have student loans, I said, trying to sound tough. Lots of them. Sully laughed. It was a dry, hacking sound. Loans. Right. Well, come on then. Welcome to the oubliette. The what? That's what the locals call it. The garage. Official name is Beacon Hill Deep Storage, but it's the oubliette. He unlocked the iron gate. It swung open with a scream of rusted metal that set my teeth on edge. Behind it was a ramp, a steep concrete throat plunging straight down into darkness. We walked down. The air temperature dropped instantly. The sounds of the city, the sirens, the wind, the distant traffic faded away, replaced by a low rhythmic thrumming sound, like a massive heart beating slowly underground. How deep does this go? I asked, my voice echoing. Officially, 4 levels, B1 through B4. And unofficially? Sully stopped. We were at a security booth situated at the bottom of the ramp. It was a glass and steel box, bathed in the sickly yellow glow of sodium lights. Beyond it, the garage stretched out, rows of concrete pillars, low ceilings, shadows that seemed to pool in the corners like oil. Unofficially, Sully said, it goes as deep as it needs to. He opened the booth. Inside, it was Spartan. A metal desk, a chair, a bank of monitors, and a coffee maker that looked like it hadn't been cleaned since the 90s. Here's the deal, Sully said, leaning against the doorframe. Shift is midnight to 6 a.m. You sit in the booth, you watch the monitors, you validate tickets for anyone trying to leave. You don't let anyone in without a pass. That's it? No. That's the job. Keeping the job? That requires following the rules. He pulled a laminated sheet from his coat pocket. It was warm. Read them, learn them, live them. I'll be back at 6 a.m. to relieve you, if you're still here. Why wouldn't I be here? Sully grinned. His teeth were yellow and looked sharpened, filed down. Some guys quit, some guys run, some guys get towed. He slapped the laminated sheet onto the desk. Good luck, kid. Don't let the echoes fool you. Then he walked back up the ramp. I watched him go, feeling a sudden, crushing sense of isolation. I was alone, underground, in a city that felt millions of miles away. I looked at the sheet. Beacon Hill Deep Storage, Night Shift Protocols. Rule 1. The garage has 4 accessible levels, B1, B2, B3, and B4. The elevator button for B5 has been removed. If the elevator arrives and the display reads B5, do not get in. Do not look at who is inside. Send it back up immediately. Rule 2. Valid parking tickets are printed on white paper with black ink. If a customer hands you a ticket printed on red paper, do not touch it with your bare skin. Use the tongs in the drawer. Validate it, open the gate, and burn the ticket immediately in the ashtray. Rule 3. Between 2:15 a.m. and 2:45 a.m., you will hear car alarms going off on level B3. The monitors will show the level is empty. Do not investigate. The alarms are not coming from the cars. Rule 4. If you see a black 1988 Lincoln Town car with tinted windows idling by, the gate, do not speak to the driver. Open the gate immediately. Do not look in the back seat. Whatever you think you see in the reflection of the windows is wrong. Rule 5. The stray dog, a German Shepherd with a limp, is allowed on B1 and B2. If you see it on B3, call it back up. If you see it on B4, leave it. It belongs to them now. Rule 6. Never whistle. The acoustics in the garage are unique. A whistle can travel down to levels that don't officially exist, and things down there treat it as a mating call. Rule 7. At 3 a.m. exactly, the lights on level B2 will die. They will remain off for 6 minutes. During this time, do not look at monitor 4. You will see movement. It is a glitch. If you stare at the glitch, it will notice you. Rule 8. There is a homeless man named Old Tom who sleeps near the air vents on B1. He is harmless. However, if he approaches the booth and offers you a lucky penny, accept it. Keep it in your left pocket. It will get warm when you are in danger. If he offers you a silver dollar, refuse it politely and lock the booth door. Rule 9. If the phone rings, answer it. If it is a woman crying, hang up. If it is static, hang up. If it is a voice asking, is there space, check the counter. If the counter reads 666, say we are at capacity. If it reads anything else, say proceed to level B4. Rule 10. Do not sleep. If you fall asleep, you will wake up in the back seat of a car parked on a level you cannot reach by foot. Rule 11. Mirrors in the restrooms on B1 are to be covered between 3 AM and 4 AM. If you find a cover removed, do not look at your reflection. You won't see yourself. You will see the person standing behind you. Rule 12. If a customer attempts to pay with coins that look ancient, gold, irregular shapes, accept them. Do not count them. Put them in the lockbox marked Tribute, under the desk. Rule 13. Level B4 floods when it rains. If it is not raining outside, but monitor 8 shows water rising on B4, put on the earplugs found in the drawer. The water isn't water, and the sound of it rising can cause hemorrhages. Rule 14. At the end of your shift, walk up the ramp backwards until you see daylight. Never turn your back on the garage until you're on the street. I read the list. I laughed. Nervous, jagged laughter that bounced off the glass walls of the booth. Hazing, I muttered to myself. Classic hazing. Spook the grad student. I sat down in the swivel chair. It squeaked. The monitors hummed. Monitor 1, the ramp, empty. Monitor 2, level B1, rows of sedans and SUVs. Monitor 3, level B2, more cars, a few concrete pillars. Monitor 4, level B3, mostly empty. A single white van parked in the far corner. Monitor 5, level B4. I squinted at monitor 5. The camera feed was grainy, black and white. B4 looked different. The pillars seemed thicker, the shadows darker, and in the center of the floor there was a large dark stain, like oil, or something else. I checked my watch. Midnight. All right, I whispered. 6 hours, easy money. I poured myself a cup of the sludge from the coffee pot. It tasted like burnt copper. Night 1, the acclimation. The first 2 hours were boring, painfully boring. I read a paperback I'd brought with me, a history of the Boston subway system, and watched the empty ramp. No cars left, no cars entered. At 2:10 AM, I started to relax. The rules were a joke. Sully was just messing with me. Then, at 2:15 AM exactly, a sound cut through the silence. Wee, ooh, wee, ooh, wee, ooh. A car alarm, loud, piercing. I looked at the monitors. Monitor 4, level B3. The level was empty except for that white van in the corner. The van wasn't flashing. The alarm sounded like it was coming from the center of the aisle, right where empty concrete met empty air. Beep, 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 beep. Another one joined in. Then another. A chorus of electronic shrieks echoing off the low ceilings. My hand went to the radio Sully had left on the desk. Control, this is Thorne. I've got alarms on B3. Silence. Then a click. Read Rule 3, kid. Sully's voice. But he wasn't on the radio. The radio was unplugged. I stared at the device. The cord was dangling off the back of the desk. I spun around. The booth was empty. The alarm stopped instantly. The silence that followed was heavier than before, thick, pressing against the glass. I checked the time. 2:45 AM. 30 minutes had passed in what felt like 30 seconds. I was sweating now. Cold sweat that stuck my shirt to my back. At 2:58 AM, a car pulled up to the exit gate. It was a 2020 Mercedes. Black, sleek. The driver rolled down the window. He was a normal-looking guy in a suit, maybe late 40s. He looked tired. "Rough night?" I asked, my voice shaking slightly. He didn't look at me. He just held out a ticket. It was printed on red paper. I froze. Rule 2. If a customer hands you a ticket printed on red paper, do not touch it with your bare skin. "Just take the ticket," the man said. His voice was monotone, dead. I looked in the drawer. There, next to a stapler, was a pair of metal tongs, like the kind you use for a barbecue. I felt ridiculous, absolutely insane, but the fear in my gut was real. I picked up the tongs. I reached out through the window slot and clamped the tongs onto the red paper. The moment the metal touched the paper, it sizzled. A wisp of smoke curled up. The man didn't react. He stared straight ahead. I pulled the ticket into the booth. It was hot, radiating heat like a coal. I validated it, punched it with the machine. The machine made a sound like a bone snapping. The gate opened. The Mercedes rolled forward. As it passed the booth, I glanced at the back seat. I wish I hadn't. There was no back seat. The interior of the car behind the driver's seat was missing. It was just a black void, a hole in space contained within the chassis of a German luxury car. And inside that void, swirling like mist, were faces, dozens of them, screaming silently. The car drove up the ramp and vanished into the Boston night. I dropped the red ticket into the metal ashtray. It burst into flames instantly. Blue chemical flames that smelled like sulfur and ozone. I sat back in the chair, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. "Okay," I whispered. "Okay, the rules are real." I looked at the clock. 2:59 a.m. Rule 7. At 3:00 a.m. exactly, the lights on level B2 will die. I looked at monitor 3, level B2. It was bright, fluorescent, normal. The second hand ticked. 3 ASUR. Click. Monitor 3 went black. Not just dark, black. The kind of black that has weight. Do not look at monitor 4. You will see movement. My eyes were drawn to it. I couldn't help it. Monitor 4, level B3. It was supposed to be empty, but there was something there now. In the center of the aisle, a figure. It was tall, too tall. Its limbs were elongated, like pulled taffy. It was crouching, its knees bent backward, like a grasshopper's legs. It was facing the camera. I stared. It is a glitch. If you stare at the glitch, it will notice you. The figure on the monitor moved. It tilted its head. A jerky, stop-motion movement. It raised a long, pale finger and pointed. Not at the camera. At me. Through the screen. The monitor flickered. Static washed over the image. When the picture cleared, the figure was gone. But on the glass of the booth, right in front of my face, there was a smudge, a fingerprint, on the outside of the glass. It was long, impossibly long, and it was steaming in the cold air. I spun the chair around, scanning the garage. Nothing, just concrete and shadows. I spent the rest of the night huddled in the corner of the booth, clutching the tongs like a weapon. At 6:00 a.m., sunlight hit the top of the ramp. Sully walked down, looking fresh and rested. He tapped on the glass. I jumped a foot in the air. "Easy, kid," he grinned. "You made it." He looked at the ashtray, at the pile of grey ash from the red ticket. He nodded, impressed. "Red ticket on your first night? That's rare. Usually they test you with the alarms first." "What is this place?" I whispered. "What is it?" "I told you," Sully said, opening the door. "It's a garage. We park cars. Sometimes we park other things." He handed me an envelope. "Your pay, cash. See you tonight." I looked at the envelope. It was thick. I thought about Vinny the landlord. I thought about the eviction notice. I don't know. "Sure you do," Sully said. He pointed to my pocket. "Check your pocket." I frowned. I reached into my left pocket. I pulled out a penny. It was old, tarnished, dated 1922. I hadn't met old Tom. I hadn't left the booth. Where did this come from? Garage likes you, Sully said. It gave you a tip. Don't spend it. It's insurance. I walked up the ramp. Backward, just like the rule said. When I hit the street, the noise of Boston, the garbage trucks, the honking taxis, the swearing pedestrians, sounded like music. I went home. I paid Vinny. I slept for 12 hours. And when I woke up, I knew I was going back. Not just for the money, but because when I closed my eyes, I could still see the void in the back of the Mercedes, and I needed to know what was screaming inside it. Night shift, rural posting, good pay, come find us. We're always hiring. Just remember the rules, especially the new one I added today. Rule 17, don't trust the sunrise. Sometimes it's just the opening of a very large, very bright eye. Act 2, echoes in the deep night. 2, the curator. The second night is always harder than the first. The first night, you have adrenaline. You have the novelty of the bizarre. The second night, you have the crushing realization that the nightmare wasn't a dream, and you voluntarily signed up for the sequel. I arrived at the alley at 11:50 p.m. It was raining, a cold, miserable Boston drizzle that turned the cobblestones into slick, black teeth. The gate was already open. Sully was nowhere to be seen. Taped to the glass of the security booth was a note written on the back of a Dunkin' Donuts napkin. Keys under the mat. Coffee machine is descaled. You're welcome. If the phone rings before midnight, don't answer it. It's for yesterday. I found the key. A heavy brass thing that looked like it belonged to a dungeon, not a parking garage, and let myself in. The booth smelled of bleach and ozone. I locked the door behind me, settled into the squeaky chair, and checked the monitors. The garage was quiet. B1 through B3 were static images of grey concrete and shadows. B4 was agitated. The shadows on the lowest level seemed to be writhing like oil on water. I set up my station. Thermos of high-grade coffee, no more sludge. A ham sandwich and a flashlight I'd bought at a hardware store on the way over. A heavy-duty mag light. If I had to go out there, I wanted something that could double as a baton. My shift started quietly. The hum of the ventilation system was the only sound, a low-frequency thrum that seemed to vibrate in my molars. At 12:45 a.m., nature called. I stared at the door of the booth. I really didn't want to go out there. But the staff restroom was on level B1, about 50 yards from the booth, tucked behind a concrete pillar marked 14. Rule 11, mirrors in the restrooms on B1 are to be covered between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. It was only 12:45. I was safe. I grabbed the mag light and stepped out. The air in the garage hit me differently without Sully there. It was heavy, stale. It tasted like exhaust fumes and something metallic, like the taste of a penny in your mouth. I walked towards pillar 14, my footsteps echoing loudly. Clack, clack, clack. Every shadow seemed to stretch toward me. I kept the flashlight beam moving, sweeping the corners. I reached the restroom door. It was painted a peeling industrial green. I pushed it open. The room was small, tiled in cracked white ceramic. A sink, a urinal, a stall, and a mirror. The mirror was uncovered, obviously. I washed my hands, splashing cold, water on my face to wake up. I looked at my reflection. I looked tired, pale. My eyes had dark circles that hadn't been there 2 days ago. Just a job, Elias, I whispered to the glass. Just a job. My reflection didn't whisper back. It blinked. I froze. I hadn't blinked. I stared at the mirror. My reflection stared back. Then very slowly, the reflection smiled. A wide, predatory grin that showed too many teeth. I backed away, stumbling. Rule 11 says 3 a.m., I shouted at the mirror, my voice cracking. It's not 3 a.m. The reflection tapped the glass from the inside. Tink, tink. Then it pointed to the corner of the room, near the radiator. I didn't want to look. I really didn't. But I followed the finger. Tucked behind the rusted pipes of the radiator was a book. A small black moleskin notebook, covered in dust and what looked like dried mold. I grabbed it and ran. I didn't look back at the mirror. I slammed the door and sprinted back to the booth, my heart trying to punch its way out of my chest. I locked the booth door and collapsed into the chair. I checked the time. 1:05 a.m. The mirror rule had changed. Or maybe the entity in the mirror just didn't care about clocks tonight. I wiped my hands on my jeans. They felt slimy, though they were dry, and looked at the notebook. The cover was embossed with the initials DM. I opened it. The pages were stiff, crinkled from moisture. The handwriting was jagged, frantic scrawl in blue ballpoint pen. Log of Daniel Miller, night shift security. Beacon Hill, deep storage. Entry 1, Oct 14, 2019. Sully seems like a hard ass, but the pay is real. Place is creepy though. The acoustics are weird. I dropped my keys on B2 and heard them hit the floor on B4. How does that work? Entry 4, OCT 18, 2019. The dog is real. I saw it tonight. German Shepherd, limping on its back left leg. I tried to give it some of my sandwich, but it wouldn't eat. It just stared at me. Its eyes aren't right. They reflect light like a cat's, but red. Not green. Red. Entry 12, Oct 30, 2019. I met old Tom. He sleeps near the vents because the warm air comes up from somewhere deeper. He told me the heat isn't mechanical. He says the garage is built on top of a vent, not a geothermal vent, a spiritual one. He gave me a penny, said it pays the toll. Entry 22, Novi 11, 2019. I broke a rule. I whistled. I didn't mean to. I was just bored, humming a tune, and the whistle slipped out. The whole garage went silent. Then the elevators started moving. All of them. They all went to B4, and they didn't come back up. Entry 25, Nov 14, 2019. They're watching me, the reflections. They aren't confined to the mirrors anymore. I saw myself in the window of a parked Camry on B2. The reflection me was screaming, banging on the glass from the inside of the car. I think I'm going to be fired, or worse. The entries ended there. The rest of the pages were torn out. I closed the book. Daniel Miller. I wondered if he was the one who quit before me, or if he was the reason there was a job opening at all. A movement on monitor 2 caught my eye. Level B1, near the vents. A pile of rags was moving. Old Tom. Rule 8. There is a homeless man named Old Tom. If he approaches the booth, he wasn't approaching the booth. He was sitting up, shaking off a layer of cardboard and newspapers. He looked like a pile of debris that had decided to become sentient. Long, matted grey hair, a beard that reached his chest, and a coat made of at least 3 other coats stitched together with wire. He looked directly at the camera. He waved. Then he pointed at the booth. He made a "come here" motion with his hand. I hesitated, leaving the booth again, after the mirror incident. But Rule 8 said he was harmless. And if he had information, like he gave Daniel, I needed it. I grabbed the mag light and the radio. Going to B1, I muttered to the empty booth, purely for the sake of the recording, if anyone was even recording. I walked up the ramp to B1. The air was warmer near the vents, smelling faintly of sulfur and rot. Old Tom was sitting on a milk crate, whittling a piece of wood with a knife that looked like it was made from a sharpened car antenna. "You're the new keeper," he rasped. His voice sounded like dry leaves crushing underfoot. "I'm the security guard," I corrected, standing a safe distance away. "Keeper," he insisted. He looked me up and down. "You got the penny?" I patted my left pocket. "I got it." "Good. Keep it. The price of admission is going up." "What does that mean?" Tom spat on the concrete. The spit hissed. Inflation, boy. Even hell has inflation. The things downstairs, they're hungry. The ones who built this place, the founders, they made a deal. But deals expire. Who built this place? The Brahmins, the old families. Beacon Hill wasn't always a hill, you know. They dug it out. They found things. They built the garage to keep a lid on it. He stopped whittling and looked at me with eyes that were surprisingly clear and blue amidst the filth of his face. You found the book. Danny's book. I did. What happened to him? Tom pointed a gnarly finger toward the floor. He whistled. Never whistle, boy. It calls the hounds. The stray dog? That ain't a hound. That's a stray, a watcher. The hounds, they don't limp, and they don't have fur. Suddenly Tom stiffened. He sniffed the air. Go back, he whispered. Go back to your glass box, now. Why? The town car, it's coming. I didn't argue. The fear in his voice was genuine. I turned and speed walked back to the ramp. As I reached the booth, I heard the rumble of an engine, a deep, throaty purr that vibrated in my chest. A black 1988 Lincoln Town car rolled down the entrance ramp. Rule 4. If you see a black 1988 Lincoln Town car, do not speak to the driver. Open the gate immediately. Do not look in the back seat. It stopped at the gate. The windows were tinted so dark they looked like slabs of obsidian. I was inside the booth now. I hit the gate release button. The gate arm didn't move. Come on, I muttered, hitting it again. Open. Nothing. The mechanism was jammed, or frozen. The Lincoln idled. The engine revved slightly. Impatient. The driver's window rolled down about 2 inches. A smell drifted out. Lilacs. Overwhelming, cloying lilacs, masking the scent of formaldehyde. Problem. A voice from the car. Smooth. Cultured. Aristocratic. Do not speak to the driver. I bit my tongue. I hit the button again. I grabbed the manual override key from the drawer. Young man, the voice said, we are on a tight schedule. The guest of honor does not like to wait. I ignored him. I jammed the key into the console and twisted. The gate arm jerked, then rose slowly. Thank you, the voice said. You are more efficient than Mr. Miller was. He tried to look. The car rolled forward. I kept my eyes fixed on the license plate. It was blank. I did not look at the back seat, but the booth was made of glass. And glass reflects. In the reflection of my own monitor, I saw the passing car. I saw the back window. The tint didn't work in the reflection. I saw the back seat. Sitting there was a figure draped in a white sheet. But the sheet was stained crimson where the face should be. And under the sheet, the shape, it wasn't human. It had too many joints. And sitting next to it, looking terrified, wearing a security uniform, was Daniel Miller. He mouthed one word to me as the car passed. Run. The Lincoln descended to B2, then B3. I watched the monitors. It didn't stop on B3. It went to the ramp for B4. The ramp for B4 was flooded. Water, dark, murky water, covered the bottom of the incline. The Lincoln didn't slow down. It drove straight into the water. It didn't splash. It didn't float. It submerged smoothly, like a submarine, the tail lights glowing red under the surface until they faded into the black. I sat in the booth, shivering. Rule 13. Level B4 floods when it rains. The water isn't water. It was raining outside, but B4 was flooded with something that accepted a Lincoln Town car like a sacrifice. The phone rang. I jumped. I stared at the red phone on the wall. Rule 9. If the phone rings, answer it. I picked it up. My hand was shaking so bad I almost dropped the receiver. Beacon Hill deep storage, I managed to squeak. Static, white noise, heavy and wet, like ocean waves. Then, a woman's voice, crying, sobbing uncontrollably. If it is a woman crying, hang up. I moved to hang up. Please, the voice choked out. Please, Elias, it's cold down here. I froze. That wasn't a random voice. It was my mother. My mother who had died of cancer 3 years ago in Ohio. "Mom," I whispered. I couldn't help it. The grief hit me like a physical blow. "Elias, help me. It's so dark. The water is rising. Why did you let them take me?" I didn't. "Don't listen to him, Elias," she screamed suddenly, her voice distorting into a demonic screech. "He's lying about the penny." Click. The line went dead. I stood there, holding the receiver, tears streaming down my face. It knew. The garage knew my name. It knew my history. It knew my dead mother's voice. I slammed the phone back onto the cradle. "It's a trick," I said aloud, trying to force conviction into my voice. "It's audio manipulation. It's a psych test." But I knew it wasn't. I looked at the penny in my pocket. Old Tom said it paid the toll. The voice said it was a lie. Who to trust? The homeless mystic or the demon mimicking my dead mother? I chose Tom. For now, I spent the rest of the night watching Monitor 5, Level B4. The water receded around 5 a.m., leaving behind a slick, black residue on the concrete. There was no sign of the Lincoln. When Sully arrived at 6 a.m., I was waiting for him at the gate. "The gate's stuck," I said, my voice flat. Sully looked at the mechanism. "It does that when the town car comes. Magnetic interference. You didn't look, did you?" "No." "Good. We lost 3 guys last year to peaking." He handed me my envelope. "Who is Daniel Miller?" I asked. Sully paused. He lit a fresh cigar, the flame illuminating the jagged scars on his knuckles. Danny was a good kid. Curious. Too curious. I found his notebook. Sully sighed. "Burn it." "Why?" "Because it's not a diary, kid. It's a menu. Reading it just tells the things downstairs that you're ready to be served." He walked past me into the booth. "See you tonight, Fawn. Bring rain boots. Forecast says storm." I walked home in the morning light. The city looked grey and washed out, like a photograph left in the sun too long. I didn't burn the notebook. I took it home. I hid it under my mattress. I slept for 4 hours and dreamed of water. Black water. And in the water, swimming like sharks, were Lincoln Town cars with teeth in their grills. I woke up with the taste of salt and pennies in my mouth. I was going back for night 3. I had to. Because on the last page of Danny's notebook, the one I hadn't read in the booth, there was a map of level B5. And in the center of B5, sketched in shaky ink, was a door marked Archives. If the history of this place, the real history, the one that got me kicked out of BU for suspecting, was down there, I had to see it, even if it killed me. Night 3, the descent rain, torrential, biblical rain. It hammered against the pavement as I walked to the garage, soaking me to the bone despite my umbrella. The wind howled through the alleyway, making the iron gate rattle against its hinges. I arrived at midnight. The oubliette was waiting. The water was already running down the ramp, a steady stream of runoff that disappeared into the drains at the bottom, but I knew where it really went. B4. I entered the booth. Sully had left another note. "Pumps are acting up on B4. Don't go down there unless you have gills. If you see the girl in the yellow raincoat, ignore her. She's just an echo." I crumpled the note and tossed it. I checked the monitors. B4 was a lake. This B4, black water had risen halfway up the pillars, and floating in the water, bobbing gently, were things that looked like bundles of clothes, or bodies. I turned away from Monitor 5. Tonight was the night. I had a plan. The rules said B5 didn't exist. The elevator button was removed. Rule 1. If the elevator arrives and the display reads B5, do not get in. But Danny's notebook had a map and notes. The button is gone, but the contact is still there. You need a conductor, a silver conductor, or copper, the penny. I pulled the 1922 penny from my pocket. It was warm, buzzing with a faint vibration. At 1:30 a.m., the garage was quiet. No alarms yet, no town car. I grabbed my gear, maglite, radio, notebook, penny. I walked to the elevator shaft located near Pillar 4 on B1. The elevator was an old freight model with a scissor gate and wood-paneled walls that smelled of rot. I pressed the call button. It groaned. Cables snapped and whined. Ding. The doors opened. I stepped inside. The panel had buttons for B1, B2, B3, B4. The spot where B5 should be was a hole covered by a metal plate that had been welded shut, but the weld was old, rusted. I used the end of my key to pry at the plate. It flaked away, revealing a hole with loose wires behind it. "Here goes nothing," I whispered. I held the penny between my thumb and forefinger. I reached into the hole and pressed the penny against the two exposed contact wires. Zap. A spark flew, stinging my hand. The lights in the elevator flickered and died. Then, the red emergency bulb flickered on. The floor dropped out from under me. The elevator didn't descend. It plummeted. I grabbed the railing, my stomach lurching into my throat. The numbers on the display flashed rapidly. B1, B2, B3, B4. It kept going. B5, B6, B7. It stopped with a bone-jarring thud that knocked me to my knees. The display read, "Error." The scissor gate rattled open. I stood up, brushed off my knees, and aimed my flashlight into the darkness. This wasn't a parking garage. It was a cavern. The walls were rough-hewn bedrock, glistening with moisture. The floor was dirt, packed hard. The ceiling was lost in the gloom above. And filling the space, row upon row, were not cars. They were carriages. Old black Victorian funeral carriages. Hundreds of them. Their wood rotting, their velvet interiors moth-eaten. But the horses were still there. Skeletal remains of horses, still harnessed to the carriages, standing in silent formation. I stepped out of the elevator. The air was frigid. It smelled of earth and time. I walked down the central aisle of the necropolis. "Danny," I whispered. My voice didn't echo. The darkness absorbed it completely. I consulted a map in the notebook. Center of B5, the archives. I walked for what felt like a mile. The rows of carriages seemed endless. Then I saw it. A building inside the cavern, a small stone structure that looked like a crypt. Above the door, carved into the granite, were words in Latin, Custodia Memoriae, custody of memory. The door was iron. It was slightly ajar. I pushed it open. Inside, it looked like a library. Shelves of books, scrolls, and license plates. Thousands of license plates, nailed to the walls, dating back to the first Model T. Sitting at a desk in the center of the room was a figure. It wasn't a monster. It wasn't a ghost. It was a woman. She wore a 1920s flapper dress, beaded and shimmering in my flashlight beam. She was smoking a cigarette in a long holder. She looked up as I entered. Her eyes were entirely black. "You're early," she said. Her voice was like smoke. "Who are you?" I asked, keeping the light in her face. "I am the archivist, and you," she smiled. "You are the new thorn in my side." She stood up. She was tall, 7 feet, easy. "You're looking for answers, Elias, about the garage, about why you're here. I'm here for the money." "Liar. You're here because the map spoke to you, because you heard the city breathing." She walked toward me. I stepped back, raising the heavy flashlight. "Don't run," she purred. "The elevator won't work without a tribute greater than a penny." "What do you want?" "A trade, information for a memory." "What kind of memory?" "A happy one. We don't get many of those down here. The garage runs on fear, on despair, on the panic of the trapped. But I have a sweet tooth." She leaned down, her face inches from mine. She smelled of old paper and dried flowers. "Give me the memory of your first kiss," she whispered, "and I will tell you what lives on B4. I hesitated. It seemed like a small price, a high school memory. Sarah Jenkins behind the bleachers. Awkward, clumsy, sweet. Fine, I said. Take it. She placed a cold finger on my forehead. A sharp pain, like an ice cream headache, spiked through my skull. Then, a blank spot. I knew I had kissed someone. I knew her name was Sarah. But the feeling, the smell of her perfume, the touch of her hand, gone, erased. The archivist smiled, savoring the taste. Delicious, she sighed. Now, level B4. She turned and pulled a file from the shelf. She tossed it onto the desk. B4 is not a parking level. It is a containment unit. The garage was built over a colonial well. A well that the Puritans used to drown witches. But they weren't witches, Elias. They were something else. Something aquatic. Something old. I opened the file. Photographs. Black and white. Grainy. Shapes in the water. Humanoid, but with fins. Teeth. And in the corner of one photo, floating in the water, a badge. Security. Beacon Hill, deep storage. The water rises, the archivist said. When it rains, the well overflows, and the things, they swim up, they hunt. Hunt what? Anything warm. Stray dogs, homeless men, security guards who ask too many questions. She pointed to the door. You should go, Elias. It's raining very hard upstairs. The water is rising fast. If it reaches the elevator shaft. I turned and ran. I sprinted, back through the rows of skeletal horses. I reached the elevator. I jammed a penny back against the contacts. Nothing. Tribute, I shouted. I paid the tribute. Greater than a penny, she had said. I checked my pockets. Keys, wallet, knife. I threw my wallet into the darkness. Take it, there's $40 in there. The elevator groaned. The lights flickered. It started to rise. As the doors closed, I saw movement in the shadows of the carriage rows. Hundreds of eyes. Red, glowing eyes. The hounds. The elevator shot up. B7, B6, B5. It slammed to a halt at B1. The doors opened. Water spilled in. B1 was flooded. An inch of black water covered the floor. I splashed out, running for the ramp. The water was moving, rippling. Something grabbed my ankle. A hand. Wet, slimy, with webbing between the fingers. I screamed and kicked. I brought the mag light down hard on the wrist. Crack. The hand let go, retreating into the murky water with a hiss. I scrambled up the ramp. The water was rising behind me, chasing me. I reached the booth. I unlocked the door and threw myself inside. I slammed the door and locked it. Outside, the water lapped against the glass. Faces pressed against the panes. Pale, bloated faces with gills on their necks. I huddled on the desk, clutching the radio. Sully, I yelled. Sully, help! Static. Then a voice. Rule 13, kid, put in the earplugs. I scrambled for the drawer. Found the foam earplugs. Jammed them in. The sound of the water, the wet slapping hungry sound, muffled. I closed my eyes and prayed for dawn. When the sun rose, the water was gone. The floor of B1 was damp, covered in silt and dead fish. But on the glass of the booth, written in slime, was a message. We tasted you. You are salty. We will wait. I quit. I decided right then. I was done. I packed my bag. I walked up the ramp. Sully was at the top. He looked grim. You went down, he said. I quit, Sully. Keep the money. You can't quit, Fawn. Watch me. You gave her a memory, Sully said quietly. You made a trade with the archivist. I stopped. How do you know? Because we all did. That's the real contract. Once you give a piece of yourself to the garage, you belong to it. He pointed to my hand. I looked down. On the back of my hand, where the spark had stung me, there was a mark, a brand. It looked like a parking ticket. You're validated now, Sully said. See you tonight. I walked past him. I went home. But he was right. I couldn't leave. The city felt flat, grey, unreal. The only thing that felt real was the darkness under the hill. And I realized, with a sick, sinking feeling, that I wanted to go back. I wanted to see what else was in the archives. I had plenty of memories left to trade,